Oh, You're listening to the O Shift podcast.
There was so much of noise that you could start utilizing AI for GTM. That's where the light bulb went off. You could say, go to this website, scrape it, and we keep saying AI, but at the end of the day, AI is all going to be driven by the accuracy of the data. But look at any business around you, data is a bloody mess.
Yeah, it's garbage. Hello, everyone. I'm Rick Watson, and this is the O Shift podcast, where we go deep with software and e-commerce leaders who are navigating the real and often really messy shift toward an AI-powered world. I'm joined today by Vikram Saxena, CEO of BetterCommerce, which is a modular, composable e-com platform founded in 2015. They're doing now what a lot of larger companies are still debating, which is like, how do you integrate all these new AI capabilities that have came up in the last couple of years kind of into their internal operations, their product, their sales, all these things. So welcome, Vikram.
Thanks, Rick. It's absolutely a pleasure being here talking to you and talking about one of my favorite subjects lately. Not just mine, I think across the globe.
Yeah. Well, why don't you give me a little bit example of the company, what you guys do, and that I think that will help set the stage for kind of your role in the AI transformation that you are undergoing.
Yeah, sure. So basically, we are a B2B commerce platform aimed towards mid-market businesses, primarily targeting UK, Europe, and we've started doing through the US as well. And we provide an endless solution, end-to-end solution from a B2B commerce perspective, including PIM, order management, e-commerce, storefront, and the customer-specific elements, loads of things. That's basically what we do. I think pretty much everybody understands what B2B commerce is and what e-commerce is. So I really don't want to be boring everybody with that detail.
No, it's great. I mean, look, I think everyone had a little bit of a aha moment when ChatGPT came out, because this is a capability that we never really had in the past. So why don't you talk about what that meant for you? I think everyone, it's not necessarily like landing on the moon or something, but I think everyone experienced that moment a little bit differently for their company or personally. So what did you do then? And in the next few months, what did it make you start thinking about?
Yeah, so I think when the ChatGPT came out, initially I was very skeptical, and I think the results, it did few things really well, but then it wasn't really giving accurate results. Plus, it didn't have internet access, right? So it was like a toy. You could play around with it, but it could barely do anything. So initially it was just that I played around a little bit and then just left it in the background somewhere. And then it started evolving. And I think I would say about 1.5 years ago is when I started taking ChatGPT a bit more seriously.
Right.
When Cloud also came, Perplexity, a lot of other providers also came through this process. And that's when, I started deep diving into it, and it started helping with a little bit of technical problems, a little bit of, market research elements, a little bit of analysis, and just brainstorming ideas with it sometimes is very interesting. And you could talk about anything under the sun on philosophy as well.
Right.
So, lately, which is very interesting actually.
Yeah. Well, there might be a better way to spend your time, but it's certainly interesting what it comes up with sometimes.
Absolutely.
When you started, I guess, getting your own comfort level in place, what was the first internal use case you pursued for the company?
Yeah, from that perspective, when we started looking at it, okay, what could we do with it? So the first thing that we started building upon, and this was around, I think, about 1.5, 2 years ago, we said, if this could do all of that, why not we build a wrapper around it where we could potentially pass certain data elements to it, certain, let's say, order data, customer data, and get some analytics out of it. How much money our business is spending on, let's say, ad, and what exactly is it generating? So started looking at that data. So we built a small data wrapper around it, passed the data
Mm-hmm.
through APIs to Open API, and started seeing and asking questions.
Right.
What products are doing well, what products are failing, what campaigns are working. So started playing around from that perspective, and we did a small POC with one of our customers. He just said, people are still grappling and you guys are already doing something. So we found that to be very
Yeah.
interesting enough. It wasn't producing very accurate results. It used to falter when you gave it too much of data.
Uh-huh.
So it was a lot of trial and error kind of a process through which we
Got
started
it.
eliminating things. Okay, it works with this, it does not work with this, it works with this. So we played around with that. Second element, we started looking at how can we incorporate within the product. So that was a toy where we said we'll build a chat GPT on your data source itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started doing a more around the PIM side. Okay, you could do a lot of product copy using this within sitting inside the PIM itself. So that was another element that we started exploring. Then we built another engine which would become basically, if you remember a long time ago, if you wanted to process orders that you're getting in PDF or fax, you would need to set up an OCR system,
Mm-hmm.
which was complex. It wasn't an
Right.
easy thing.
Yeah, you don't need those things anymore.
Exactly. So one after the other, we started exploring what were the use cases that we could look at from enhancing the product overall. And then we said and gradually saw that the pace at which the whole thing is evolving is just maddening.
Right.
It's unprecedented pace at which everything is evolving. So we said, okay. And there was so much of noise that you could start utilizing AI for GTM,
Mm-hmm.
for product development. So that's when we started looking inwards. Okay, how can we bring it
Right.
into our internal processes and utilize it and build something around it?
Yeah.
That's where the light bulb went off.
Yeah. And I think, obviously a lot of people with technical skills, they start with some of this AI technology in engineering, and development, because
Yes.
it could help accelerate things. What's your preferred tool set now? And has that changed since you started?
Yes, it has changed since we started. ChatGPT remains a bit of my go to assistant.
Hmm.
It still remains my go to assistant. And about a few months ago, I found out about something called Strawberry Browser, which basically
Mm.
is an AI agent built into a browser.
Mm.
So all your browsing actions can be automated fully inside the browser itself. So you could say, go to this website, scrape it, give it to me in a CSV format, and it does all of that. It was
Right.
doing that pretty much 8, 9 months ago when OpenAI and all the other tools were not really able to do that.
Right.
And I
Right.
didn't need Clay or the other ones. There are a few other tools, Relevance AI, and few other tools that people use for doing all of that. So I didn't have to do any of that. Strawberry browser just did fairly simply.
Yeah.
Then we came across Lovable. So today, our primary tool set from AI perspective is Lovable for UI mockups, UI proof of concepts, and then Claude Code for extensive server-side coding and all those elements, and OpenAI primarily for research and a little bit more general advisory, anything general element around it.
Uh-huh.
Plus, we sometimes use OpenAI Codex as well.
Uh-huh.
That also we tend to use sometimes. And what we found with Lovable is that you could potentially literally develop at the speed of thought.
Hmm. And so this prototyping tool, there've been prototyping tools in the past that have been pretty
Yes.
easy to use. What do you think sets
Yes.
Lovable apart? Why is it has gone to this multi-billion-dollar company in the span of just a few months?
I think, so Rick, what the biggest problem, I've always believed software development in itself is a onion-like an approach.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you don't know how many layers are going to be there.
Right.
You peel one layer, and that's when you find the next layer. Okay, this is more. This is what we need to do more. What Lovable does is, and that's an organic evolution of the software development process itself.
Right.
You
Right.
start
Right.
implementing something, and
Yeah.
that's when you
Yeah.
explore that requirement, and then you find more. What Lovable does that, the moment you give a prompt, it already tells you what are those next three layers. which
Interesting.
was a significant manual process, and it required a very specific skill set to build that kind of user friendly interfaces and bring
Right.
it to life.
Right. In a world where Figma just had $1 billion IPO, what do you think is in store for those guys?
I think it's going to be challenging. It's going to be a very uphill battle for them fairly soon. And I don't think anybody would have foreseen this, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Adobe, by that metric, it almost feels like Adobe dodged a bullet, by
Yes,
acquiring the wrong company.
absolutely, 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 absolutely. And I
um,
completely agree with that. Let's
that's
see where it goes.
that's that's crazy. One of the things you mentioned in our conversations has been that you've used some of these AI tools to replace existing SaaS vendors that you use to run the
Yes.
business. And talk to me about doing that, because obviously you're a development company for B2B commerce. You're not a developer company for SaaS products, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's a trade-off there that now you have a new thing to maintain. Is How did you decide that trade-off was worthwhile, and what elements have you replaced?
So I'll tell you very simply what we've replaced. So we were using product board for our sprint planning,
Mm.
prioritization, customer feedback, and we were using Visual Studio Team servers,
Uh-huh.
VSTS, which they call for ticketing, internal work item, and internal sprint planning for all the development team, fresh test for customer support, and few other tools in that process itself. And of course, we all know that you email is the best and most preferred communication channel for everybody, right?
Right.
So your knowledge of a project gets scattered, your knowledge around an idea gets scattered across various emails, various chat conversations, various meeting conversations. So we've literally, and Read.ai came into play. So we've literally replaced all of these tools with one tool that we built internally, which we call as PDM.
Mm-hmm.
That helps. What it does is right from the customer feedback to managing the prioritization from the process when the customer gives us one line of requirement and then we start blowing it up as a proper specification, the impact, the feasibility, and planning as to when we want to be doing that. So all of that has now come into one single play, and bringing it all together earlier was a nightmare. And
Got
we
it.
all know Jiva is a big company, but
Yeah.
Jiva, I have never been a very huge fan of it. I
Right.
found it to
Yeah.
be so.
I've never heard anyone say I love Jira.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly, exactly. So we got rid of all of that, and what we built in about 4 to 6 weeks is absolutely phenomenal. And it's just had a phenomenal impact on the whole team productivity and transparency across the team.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's crazy to reproduce such functionality in 4 to 6 weeks. Um, what I mean, obviously, you still need things like databases. Do you have a preferred cloud that you're hosting these things in, or are some of these self-hosted server-side functions?
Yes, so we primarily our skill set lies in SQL Server. Our preferred hosting provider is typically Azure. That's where our platform sits, and we of course use SQL Server for that. But lately, we've started doing a lot of development on Postgre as well, PostgreSQL. So a lot of that's another tool that we use from our database perspective. From providers perspective, we were earlier a little bit on Neon.tech for Postgre, but lately we moved to Supabase. What we found was that scalability and everything was pretty much there. Superbase provided another additional layer for building these small applications and trying them out.
Got it. Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of people, and you even see the AIs recommending to them. I've been experimenting myself with different tools, and some of them recommend Superbase, some of them recommend Airtable. If you need to store some things, just it's not you're not going to put 10,000 users on it,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yep.
but for a couple dozen, it could be um, useful. How is your? I mean, there's always we've talked about engineering so far. we haven't talked about go to market. One of the things you mentioned is like you sounds like you're pretty far down the line with engineering, but there's still a lot of room to go with go to market. Walk me through your thoughts there.
So we looked at few processes and tools that could help us in our GTM side of it. And primarily GTM, if you look at it, there are two aspects of it. You have sales, and then there's marketing. So marketing is primarily driven by the content. So now we are looking at how we could utilize and bring the whole AI element into our content development process, and ensuring that our website is refreshed on a regular basis using that process as well, and ensuring that that the content is still relevant. There is still some level of touch that we bring from our knowledge depth perspective. It's not a superfluous content. It's very important that we don't just produce a mass huge repository of content which is completely superfluous and adds zero value to anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Right, that's where the guardrail is very important. So we ensure that we're still doing that. So we're still experimenting that side, so where we will bring in the whole AI into our content generation, development, and publishing process. And then on the other side is the whole sales bit, where we are now looking at different tools like Clay and few other tools to incorporate in the whole sales outreach and managing the sales process.
And do you have, I mean, clearly, usually the typical sales job description doesn't contain AI literacy or technology literacy beyond SaaS tools. So how do you bridge? Is there a gap to bridge on the go-to-market side?
I think there's a significant gap here because a lot of salespeople tend to struggle. Okay, they've all heard of ChatGPT, and it's cool to talk about ChatGPT. So nobody wants to be left out.
Yeah.
So they will all say that, okay, I've got Perplexity, I've got ChatGPT, I've taken a subscription of this. But how much they are using it is a very tricky thing. They're still very wary of, can they utilize it? They're using it. I have not seen too many salespeople using it beyond drafting some email responses, beyond drafting their,
Right.
Sequential campaigns.
Yeah.
I have
And
not
by
seen
the
too
way,
many
they
salespeople.
shouldn't be drafting their email responses because they still look.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. They shouldn't be. That is exactly where their whole unique, personal touch comes into play. They should be utilizing it to enrich that conversation rather than let it drive that conversation.
Yeah. I was reading some content by Jason Lemkin, who I really respect, from SaaStr, and he said, he started using AI BDRs and SDRs, but it's, so business development representatives and sales development
Yes,
representatives for inbound and outbound. However, it is a lot of work to manage them, and it's a lot of work to
it
train
is.
them,
It
and it's a
is.
lot of work to, at some point, a human needs to step in. And so
Absolutely.
if you have
Absolutely.
these robots working 24/7,
Yeah.
if somebody responds and doesn't get back to them, then they're going to know
Yes.
it's a robot, right? And so
Absolutely.
what's your experience going to be then? I guess have you had any trials beyond on the software side in that front yet?
No, I've heard of a lot of companies trying to do this, and a few companies have actually started setting up processes and tools around AI SDR. So that scale up your thing. But I haven't really bought into that whole thing as yet, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
I am still trying to experiment and see how does it actually adds value.
Right.
Development, engineering, internal processes, I've seen it show value very quickly.
Right. Yeah.
And you've seen, LinkedIn has blown up. I mean, everybody has now become a LinkedIn influencer. Everybody's writing content in there, and that's
Right.
all coming through AI.
Right. And yeah, and so I guess as a reader of this content, what does it make you feel? Does it make you want to read less content? Does it want to make you read
Yes.
more content? Like, what's the end game here?
I think the moment I see a very, very polished content, I tend to skip it. I read first line, and you just take a look at it and you tend to skip it.
Yeah.
Because if it's a subject that I care about, I could go to AI and ask it in the way that I wanted to. And
Right.
everybody's chat GPT or Claude they are all tailored and they're all trained on how you like to communicate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it strikes me that personal stories could still break through in an
Yes,
area,
absolutely.
in an era when AI isn't going to feed that back to you, really.
Correct.
Um,
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
there's no way to do that. There's always you mentioned time to value and prioritizing your tool set. What do you think outside of SPDM? Are you going to keep peeling the onion there, or do you see another big base of tools that you're going to focus on next?
I'll be very honest, Rick. This is my favorite hobby over the weekends. So I now have a list of, I end up spending most of my weekends just playing around and what more can I build with it. Being a hardcore techie and a developer
Yeah,
at heart, I just love doing any development or creating something around it. So,
right.
I have one thing that has always troubled me is, if you are running a cloud or a SaaS software, your cloud cost and your cloud subscriptions just go bonkers.
Uh
You
huh.
don't realize you just put your card in one website, and very soon you end up putting it on almost 25, 30 websites, and your costs just go bonkers. And most of the times it is pretty much set to your direct debit and you don't even realize, okay, it's all paid.
Yeah,
But at the year end, then you look at the bill, it's too much.
yeah.
So I'm now experimenting how I can start optimizing that and build a software on my weekends to see how I can change that part of the business and get a
Hmm.
bit more control over the costs that we spend on the cloud spend. I mean, cloud was supposed to be easier and cheaper. I think it's become more expensive actually.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned spending your own personal time, but then there's also the users need to know what to do with it. You mentioned people are using it to write emails, but then beyond that, that's saving them a few seconds, but not really, it doesn't really hit the radar. So how are you planning to fill that gap? It almost can't be more tools only.
Absolutely. No, it can't be more tools. It definitely can't be more tools. I think what needs to happen on that side is a bit more human element. And I don't know how this whole thing is going to evolve eventually. But from an AI, SDR, and BDR perspective, besides a mass outreach and even more explosion in the emails that it sends out, I don't see it adding too much value as of today. I mean, you could say that we'll create a specific landing page to a specific audience and then send them a link to that particular audience. But at the end of the day, how many emails do you get every day in terms of marketing emails, and how many emails do you actually read?
Right, right,
Right? So at some point, it all just becomes noise,
right.
and you are tuned to just delete those emails one shot. So I don't think just sending out these AI written emails using AI SDR and running these sequences is going to help in any which way. I think in some places it has to drive a meaningful conversation, content driven, where inbound is more and richer compared to the outbound.
Right. Yeah, and um, I do think that there are a lot of people that are uncomfortable with that kind of outreach. Clearly, there are a lot of people that hired outsourced SDR, BDR firms. There are most people that I know that did that ended up bringing it back in house because they weren't able to understand what the company did.
Absolutely. A lot of times that is exactly what happens because people are not ingrained into it. And I don't see this completely changing very quickly, to be honest.
Yeah,
As despite the unprecedented pace of the
yeah.
evolution of AI, I still don't see
So you're
this
still
element just.
a skeptic on the sales and
Yes,
marketing side. Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's so interesting.
Absolutely.
Um, some other things that are kind of on the radar is HR and finance. I mean, clearly, no company loves to spend more on general and administrative than they have to. Um, what do you think the opportunity is there?
I think from an HR and finance perspective, I see there is a significant opportunity because this can do a huge amount of analysis, tell you a lot of trends, where you're spending more, where are the more opportunities. It can offer significant value, I think, in terms of finance. In terms of HR, as long as the it is a predefined process, some things are needed, but you will still need a lot of human touch. So anything which requires human touch, because if you want to show empathy, I don't think AI can show empathy in its true form and shape, when it comes to the human relationships per se. Anything to do with data analytics part, I mean, we all know our brain is divided into two parts, left part and right part. One is the emotional, the empathy side of it. Second is the analytical side. So I think anything to do with the analytical data side, AI has phenomenal opportunities,
Right.
phenomenal possibilities of value addition.
Yeah.
Anything to do with the emotional side, I think it's a bit long way to go.
Yeah. And I see that when people talk about shopping, especially if you talk about very analytically driven people talking about how they shop, but not how the
Yeah.
world shops. Right?
Absolutely. 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 I think shopping, there are so many variations around it, and you can pull a lot of data to it, but at the end, there are things that you just buy because you need them, and then there are things that you want to buy, lifestyle purchases, that you buy on
Right.
emotional, and then there are
Yeah, yeah.
impulsive purchases. So there are different kinds of purchases. In some scenarios, AI will help, and Amazon has proven that. In some scenarios, people will still do what there is going to be a human touch involved.
Right. No, I think it's super interesting. And then support, I mean, it almost seems similar to engineering where the use case has been clear for some time, right?
Yes, yes.
And so natural language um, and moving away from rule-based systems just seems like the next evolution and something that we were already on the path to do.
Support, we are already now incorporating that support into our SPDM itself. So we are going to be moving away from fresh desk, bring it all in there. And the way we are looking at it is, so of course there's going to be human support still. It's not that we're going to eliminate the whole human support element altogether, but it's going to boost their productivity. So what it'll do is it'll generate the first response, show to the support guys, and then they can vet it a little bit for initial period. Okay, this makes sense or this doesn't make sense, and train that whole AI element whether what makes sense in what scenario or not. Plus, the way we are looking at it is support queries. It's going to analyze all of those, and it'll also have access to our knowledge base and say, okay, this support query is completely new and we don't have an article for this. So it'll probably draft an article around it and get it passed to the documentation team. Okay, can you review it and update it and approve it or moderate it? So that's one area where I think it's going to make significant progress as well
Yeah,
and value it.
I think that's a great idea. It also strikes me that a lot of support requests end up being your best feature ideas or triggers for
Exactly.
customer
Absolutely.
conversations. So
Absolutely.
how are you looking at mining that for product innovation?
Yeah, so the way we're looking at it is, so like I said, we were using product board for capturing customer ideas. So customers typically know whether this is supposed to be an idea for enhancement, or is this a bug that we are reporting, or is this a small change request that we are reporting. So now earlier these were two different systems. Product board was a separate system, Freshdesk was a separate system. But now we're bringing it all together into one place where everything will come into one place, and our AI system will automatically know all the capabilities of the platform and will identify whether this is actually a bug, it's a change request, or it's a new idea. And then based on that, it is also going to set up, okay, this needs to be rerouted to this particular people, and we will review it on a regular basis. And it'll elaborate further what are the value additions from this idea. How will
Mm,
this help the business?
mm. That's fascinating. So you're using it to help build internal business cases for new product development. Unpack that a little bit. Tell me more.
Yeah, so the way we're looking at it will classify those requests into different categories. So let's say there's a bug, change request, announcement, or a new idea altogether. So then we will look at it and take help from the AI. Okay, what is the overall value for this particular idea
Mm.
in the general B2B commerce space? Which industry is this applicable most? So we are defining those criteria
Mm.
and already providing those as a part of
Got
the
it.
prompt, building it into the system. As a result of that, the idea comes from the customer. And when we open up that idea, we already have a completely researched picture around that idea. Okay,
Mm.
what is the value addition that this idea is going to do? And then we vetted with few other customers. Okay, do you think this makes sense? And that's when we know, okay, this is a worth picking up an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, especially who's someone who spent a lot of his career looking at spreadsheets of ideas that were generated manually.
Yes.
That this gives you such a head start over what to do next.
Absolutely. So the idea, I mean, it's literally inverting the whole thing on its head. It's inverting the whole support system on its head because you now, instead of you having to research, okay, whether this idea makes sense, or you sitting with product managers and business analysts and then reaching out to customers, what is the value that you think, and researching over here. It just saves significant amount of time and just tells us what next to be picked up.
No, it's fascinating because it seems like just like content, there is a limit over how much innovation you can have. But you mean users, humans, we like consistency, we like routine, we like familiarity, whether it's in the people, the places we go. Even philosophers have gone out of their normal routine into the woods and found that they just re-established their same routines because it felt that way. And so it kind of strikes me that there's only so many things that users can digest. And so, similar to content side, there's only so many things you can read and take action on. But for software engineering, it's really important to decide like what are the most important three things. Even though we could do 50 things, how do you put more focus on those things? How do you decide those things?
Yeah, absolutely. How do you prioritize? So it helps, it gives you those metrics and the parameters which makes your decision making easier.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's the idea behind it.
Yeah. Um, I think the other thing that's still a challenge is awareness. I mean, anyone building a software company, people need to know who you are. Like, how does someone know
Yes.
BetterCommerce? How does someone know who OpenAI is? All these things. How have you thought about applying AI to those areas, or do you think it's just not so relevant then?
I think it is not so relevant as of now there, Rick, to be honest. I mean, we live in a very modern world where probably, you and I and few other people on LinkedIn are hyperactive and are very tech savvy and are keeping abreast of a lot of things. But when I talk to a lot of traditional or even a lot of B2B businesses, they literally have no idea what all of this is happening. I mean, I've had conversations with people who are running their more than 100 million pound businesses on PDF catalogs. Unbelievable it may sound, but their website has a PDF catalog of, let's say, 50,000 SKUs, but they're not even running a digital web shop. So imagine in today's day and age, there are businesses who are doing 100 million upwards without a digital web shop,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So in today's day and age, if that is possible, then there are even more businesses who don't even know what AI is and what its potential is.
Right.
They're still living in the old world, and awareness is very important. But I think it's going to take a bit of time. And sometimes it amazes me that despite we coming so far in the world of internet, people are still not there yet. I mean, we keep
Yeah.
saying AI, AI, but at the end of the day, AI is all going to be driven by the accuracy of the data. But look at
Right.
any business around you, data is a bloody mess.
Yeah. It's garbage.
It is fragmented across hundreds of
Yeah.
spreadsheets lying on their
Do
L
you
drive,
remember the
A drive, J
term?
drive.
Yeah. Do you remember the term GIGO?
Yeah, what was that? Sorry.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Garbage in, garbage out. It is exactly that. I mean, their structured systems don't have good enough data. Every salesperson is referring to a different price book lying on a different
Right.
drive in Google folder.
Right.
So you talk to three different salespeople and they're all giving you three different prices.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think it's a challenge. This has been a great conversation, Vikram. I've really enjoyed getting to know you as well as kind of your journey with AI so far. Um, so thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Rick. I thoroughly enjoyed. It's a subject close to my heart. Live and breathe it and love it.
Yeah, I mean, today's episode, I think, is a reminder for me, like, the transformation doesn't need to mean big projects. Like, start with small things that can deliver immediate value, and stay away from things where you're just still a little bit more skeptical about, and you're not sure if it's going to result in more noise or better impact. And so if you're out there leading a team and wondering how to move beyond AI demos and prototypes, shoot me a direct message. If you've done your own experiments and leading a software company or involved, would love to help you tell that story. So thanks a lot. And from Rick and Vikram here at the O Shift podcast, thanks for listening.